So, contrast. We're going to break contrast actually into 3 different areas. So we'll talk about each individual area kind of has its own thing. It's not that it's the most important, it's just it's the easiest one to break out while we talk about. So, there's a definition of contrast. This may be the kind of thing that shows up as a fill in the blanks, so I'll give you a second to write it down. Do remember that I am recording this actual lecture with my voice and all, and already online, if you were to go on Canvas, you can see this whole PowerPoint without my voice. So either way, you have total access to this, so don't feel too bad if you don't write this down word for word, but I know that's a good note-taking thing. So contrast is the difference in visual properties that make an object, or its representation in an image, distinguishable from other objects and the background. The difference in visual properties that makes an object, or its representation in an image, distinguishable from other objects in the background. JC, can you give me that same thing as you would tell it to your friend at a locker? Sure. Yeah, just kind of reword the definition so it doesn't sound all Webstery. Okay, good. That's basically what I would say. Contrast is all about making things stand out against each other in one way or another. As we go through these, to save yourselves a little bit of suspense, there are the 3 kinds that we're going to be talking about, and we'll get to them all. Shape, size, and color are the 3 areas of contrast that we actually talk about. Okay? All right, off we go. So, starting with color contrast, you know, having those that were in the photography class, that there's a big colorblind problem in America and the world in general. 1/8 out of us are colorblind. Your very teacher, of course, is colorblind himself. I'm actually worse than the 1 out of every 8 males that's colorblind. I'm 1 out of every 64,000 males is colorblind like me. Essentially, being colorblind, everybody's got cones in their eyes. And think about your cones being the guy that can recognize blue. So blue light hits your eye, and the blue guy goes up to the brain and goes, "That's blue." And the other guy goes, "That's purple." Okay? And the blue and purple guy are friends, but they're separate people. I don't have separate people for blue and purple. I just have one person. So when blue color hits, the guy runs up and goes, "That's blue." The purple color hits, and the guy runs up and goes, "That's blue." Okay? Especially when they're right next to each other. The brain's like, "What's that one versus that one?" He's like, "Those are both blue." He's got a really weird voice.
It's like he's screaming at me.
He's screaming with love. Okay? So, with that in mind, remember, all of this stuff, no matter, and it doesn't always have to be for advertising, but oftentimes graphic designs, we make a graphic to make people notice it. Nobody wants to sit there and figure it out. When I hand somebody a business card and the colors contrast is bad, and they're like, "Oh, I'll just look closer." No, they're like, "X." Right? I'm handing out wedding business cards, and they're getting, these brides are getting 60 of them. And I'm like, "Take this one. Ooh, figure it out. It's a little puzzle. What color is that? I can't really read that word. Let me turn on a light so I can read this." No, we're not going to do that. You're out.
I would.
Okay? Well, if it was like a puzzle, you might. But so, people that are looking at your designs don't want to have to really look and figure them out. This is true of everything, but especially color. If the colors don't jive, I'm done. Okay? Your general hint there is use complementary colors. We've been alluding this whole time. You're not going to make but one decision for every design that you do in this class. Okay? As soon as you make one decision, all the other decisions about your business card are, at least in some ways, made for you. So if you decide, for my business card, I'm going to have this really cool blue kind of wavy graphic that I found. Well, guess what? You just decided the alignment because you've chosen wavy. So you're going to have probably some curvature maybe to your letters. You've chosen your font type because you can't have curvy, blue background and then be like, rock and roll jagged edge font. You've chosen some of your color choices because you're going to use complementary colors to that blue background so that your stuff stands out. Yada, yada, yada. All those colors, all those decisions are made for you because you like that blue background. Perfect. The important thing is that the first thing you choose is like, I really love this font. And then all of a sudden you have to make everything over your Curls and T's font. And you're like, sweet. I really like Curls and T's font for my law firm. All right, now you've got a clown-looking lawyer. So use complementary colors. If you have something that's like, I'm locked into it, it's McDonald's, so I need red and yellow, then you need to use complementary colors to that for the rest of your design. So again, looking at color contrast, I can't see the part on the left. I know it's there because I put it there. All right? When you have like a purple on a blue, it's incredibly hard and for some people impossible to read. Okay? The stuff on the right, much easier. The yellow on the blue, I can see that. It's my alma mater. Bingo bango. Maybe that's where I went to the school. Okay? But the stuff on the left, 1 out of every 64,000 males, which sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot when you consider a brand like McDonald's, who's serving 9 million people in America. Okay? 1 out of every 64,000 couldn't read their logo. That's a big hit. So you need to use those complementary colors. Okay? Here's a good example. Nice little color contrast. We also see, we haven't gotten to it yet, but we see a little bit of repetition. In particular, that's not to say that everything has to be complementary colors. Okay? There's parts of this card that he didn't really want like screaming off the card. Right? He wanted pixel design to be there. Boom, I can see that. Okay, but some of the other stuff, it was okay that it wasn't quite so full of pop. So we see that kind of in these lower levels of it, right? Kind of a side note from contrast here. This is a really popular design style right now. In fact, when you watch the Hawkit News, you'll almost always be able to tell when it's a CG that I made because it's a quick and easy fix to fill up space, and that's usually when I need to make a graphic for the show, it's like last minute, we didn't make that, Mr. Johnson, help! Try to whip it out for them. You take one word, or even sometimes you take an image, and you simply stretch that sucker out really big, fill up with some of that kind of weird, awkward space that was there, and then opacize it way down. Really, really popular design right now, something that your clients, when they get their brochure in May, will really, really like. Now, design trends change. 5 years ago, this sample card that was here was one that had a little mirror reflection. It would be pixel, and the pixel would be upside down, and then kind of faded out. It was all the rage. iPhones, it was little apps, and it had a little reflection. It was so cool. We learned how to do it. So, even that, a little bit, yeah. Okay. So, we've looked at this site once before, but there's tons and tons of these. There's all kinds of places to keep in mind your font and learn about your font and see what it is. So we're going to take a quick little side tour to this site. You off?
Scene 1, Apple, take 2.
Scene 1, Apple, take 2. So let's choose a. Someone pick a color.
Green. Green.
All right, I heard more green.
Red.
So this site's going to walk you through the different possible uses of the color green. I think. What I did.
There's something above there.
Come here, green. Click on a star or fold. There we go. Green.
I just had a heart attack.
And you got an accent.
Yeah.
Here's green in all his glory. So the words are, of course, describing the feelings of green. Fortunate and lucky in the same way. Yay. No. So, along with that, and again, a lot of this is about taking some of the decision making away from you, which will help you avoid some mistakes. And that's not saying that taking your creativity away, but it's just the more you can understand and trust the fact that there's some rules with these. For instance, I just searched color infographic, and here's a little one that pops up. Similar to that website, kind of gives me an idea of what the color orange, some of the different areas that it's been used, cheerful and confident. We see that in Nickelodeon and Fanta. Okay? There's entire teams of people that do this kind of color selection. They're called color theorists. Okay? And they'll go through and go, okay, peaceful, growth, and health. And they go through, and it's not always true, like Monster Energy Drink doesn't exactly promote growth or health.
Or
Okay?
peacefulness.
But regardless, more often than not, having a good understanding of your color. And it all comes down to when you walk up to your client or Mr. Johnson or your classmate, they should be able to ask you, why did you choose that color? And you should have for them some kind of an answer. All right? Whether it's because of an infographic you'd seen about color or whether it's just, the feelings that it invokes. But you need some kind of answer, not like, I don't know, kind of like, that one's good.
Isn't the Barbie logo pink?
Yeah.
Where's Barbie on here?
It's on the
same
purple.
kind of- it's purple.
Oh, it's pink.
But that's supposed to
Do
be
you
the
see?
purple is-
No, I think the Barbie logo is purple.
No, it's like a purple is pink.
I will look this up.
Yeah, how would you know you're colorblind?
This is true.
Oh!
This is true. And you know what that's like? That's like going up to a blind person like, hold up.
Jeez, Haley, that was me. It's different, Well, you're arguing with
When Jesse came back from his car accident, Haley went up and she's like, look, I could dance, can you?
No?
Did she really?
Oh, that
God, I
Haley.
hope not.
Oh, I was like...
Okay, your second contrast type, size contrast. So, size contrast, a couple things to point out. The difference in size of things, letters or graphics or whatever it is that you've decided to throw on there, will affect where and how we look. First off, we're going to look at big objects. That's just how we get down as humans. Right? When we were cavemen in the cave, there were lots of little crickets walking around, but we noticed Tyrannosaurus rex, right? T-Rex can kill us, crickets cannot. So, we're going to see bigger things first. This is generally true of your design. So pay attention to what you're making big and make sure it's what you want people to notice first. Some of you will think back to your typography that you're doing and be like, oh yeah, probably should have made the word "and" really huge. Okay? The word "and" was like massive. It was like get busy living and get busy dying. You're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. So pay attention to, thank you, this is correct. Friday, can you just leave me alone?
That excuse only works if it's Monday.
Small objects can oftentimes be overlooked. We never noticed the cricket when we were, people. Now that being said, you can get kind of clever and cute with this and do the great difference is now when we put the cricket next to T-Rex, all of a sudden we kind of had like an ironically funny little, interesting little picture, and we did start to notice the cricket. So this is pretty famous in some like Norman Rockwell paintings and such, where it always had like the big circus elephant, and they had like the little mouse next to him. There was, in fact, there was this at the Ice Art Festival. Okay, there's always some little creature, you know, next to some big carving, and you walk up and you go, wow, you know, the elephant, and you go, oh, look at that little mouse, and then you know, you and your family stand there and you go looking at the little mouse.
No.
All right, and
I
you go,
wouldn't.
that one's cool.
I believe it. Goodbye.
So, big things first, small things can be overlooked, so make sure if it's something that needs to be seen. And that's to also say, if you need it to be small, if you want it to be overlooked, make it small. Tobacco industry did this, right? In like the 70s, they didn't even have to have warning labels, and then they came out and said, you guys have bad stuff, you need to put warning labels on. So they're like, cool, we'll do one size font. We'll make it maroon on a red background, okay? And they're like, there's our warning label, it's on there. And then in like the mid 80s, the Health and Drug Administration said, no, it has to be X, Y, Z. And that's why you see it the size you see it now. So we see that a little bit here. There's not a great example of this here, aside from I just wanted to show you, I really like the way, so you took the word portfolio, and that counter space of the O, you sunk a smaller O inside of that. A very neat little look. You also don't really notice the portfolio. You see the name, and it's nice to have the portfolio of there, but it's really the name that's big and bolded, and so that draws our attention when we see it. Okay. Same thing here. Here's that good example of small and big. The black and white works really well there. You didn't notice the white at first, but once you saw it, now the two are kind of playing really nice to each other. Within your size contrast, for some designs, you're going to want to keep in mind this idea of hierarchy. That you want to build your design from big to small based on the order of what you want them to see. So this little flyer for Flogging Molly here, first thing I want them to see is Flogging Molly. Name of the band, put it up there. Okay? That's a band. So, Flogging Molly, it's there. Okay? Then I want to say, you know, who my special guests are. That's the next thing. Which tour they're on. That's the next thing. Then we get into the smaller little dates. Notice we come back up. Flogging Molly really appreciate it if you go to their website, so that's bigger than that. Then we get all this little like blah 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 stuff, right? Super tiny small, you can't even read it. So this is an example of hierarchy where I've built the things that I really want people to see, and then I hierarchy step it down. I have my kings, my princes, so on and so forth. That's your idea of hierarchy. So that's that for size contrast. I don't even know why this is here, but it does have good size contrast. It's just a really cool design. And the last of the three contrasts is shape contrast. And shape contrast is what I was pointing out earlier on that quiz when I was showing it to you. It's when you have conflicting shapes or contrasting shapes and how that can help things show up well. Now, that's not always saying that you want to have conflicting shapes, because sometimes that can make for a really confusing identity to your design. And you're like, wow, that doesn't make any sense anymore. So they can hide or highlight. So you can take curved text and put it in kind of a curvy background, and it's going to get a little bit lost, which maybe you want. Like the words Merry Christmas were kind of, you know, built into the tree. Or it'd be bad if you don't want to be lost, or you can hide. The second thing that shape contrast that we do is not necessarily contrast as much as it'll help guide us through the document. We'll get back to that baseball page poster in a moment, but there's some shapes in that design that help kind of guide us through, and we'll look at them when we get there. So here's an interesting, you know, shape contrast. You have the very square brackets and all of that, and then you have the angular arrow. So that arrow it really kind of helps that arrow pop off. This is actually a card that was designed, that was used for a long time here for Hutchison Student Council, designed by a student your age. Okay? Notice also the good alignment there, how it's left aligning, forms a clean gutter. Okay? Shape contrast there. They may have written the word climate first, had the hand, had climate, and they realized, uh-oh, and this is the most common thing that will happen to you guys. You choose a cool background, you try to put text on top of it, the background may not contrast enough against the text, and all of a sudden we start losing words, losing information. The easiest fix that you see here, just take a box. Take a white box, put it between the two, and then fade it out until you're still able to see it without conflicting with your design. It can look very, very nice. But among the many corrections on different things, that's probably one of the more common is, you can't see that. You need to put a box behind there. You put a drop box in the back. Do it in your book a lot. Not this year, because we're not writing a lot. Okay? There we can kind of see the shape guiding us through. It's kind of a spilling water brush kind of a thing. It's taking us through there, and then once we get to the other information, the shape goes away. So, summing contrast up. You always check it 3 ways. Are my colors good? Are my size of things appropriate? And is my shape good? Go back to your part of your notes about size really quick. And I'm going to pop back up the hierarchy. Forgot to mention something. And this is true with actually all shape, but it's especially true with size. The big saying that you don't want to hear is, don't be a wimp. Okay? You'll be like, okay, I'm going to make my title. All right, my title looks good. My title is size 56. Font size 56. And you're like, okay, so my subtitle, I'll make it smaller, I'll make it size 52. And I will say, don't be a wimp. Okay? Your hierarchy, your stepping down of font, at least until you get a good handle on it, should be half. So if my font is size 100, my next second important thing, size 50. Okay? Big, vibrant size contrast. And I do want to make sure that you know, I mean visually half the size. Sometimes it's not true, especially with your downloaded fonts. Size 100 in Times New Roman might be this tall, and size 26 in Bangladesh downloaded font from defont.com might be this big. So it's about visual half the size. So don't just rely on the number and be like, well, this is size 26, so that's smaller than 100. Well, no, it's not. It's how it looks on the paper. Until it's this size, it needs to be stepped down. So don't be a wimp. Use your size contrast well. All right, let's point some out here. Elena, you get to go first. Point out contrast and tell me which of the 3 it is. Point out somewhere on here that you've seen good contrast. Blue and yellow background for the complementary colors would be color contrast. Okay, so yellow and blue, the ticket part is showing off relatively well. Natalie, not color contrast.
The circles, they are kind of like overlaying each other and they go down in size. So you see the big yellow first, the bigger.
Good. So size contrast. Okay, good. It stepped down pretty well. Not only the circles, but also the dollar amount. As the dollar amount gets less, the dollar amount gets smaller. That leaves us with shape contrast. And Alexandra.
What was the contrast?
Shape.
Okay. So how the parallelogram and the circles, how that makes it pop out? Wait, is that the right one?
I like it. Yeah. And actually, good on you, because I didn't see a lot. There's not a ton of shape contrast in here. That's actually probably the best one that she pointed out. The other one would be the fact that these letters are relatively squared off, okay, the corners of them, versus their circular background. So that helps the letters kind of show up a little bit better. But that one's pretty weak compared to what Alexandria pointed out. It's much better, is that kind of tag. We call that a tag or a flyer. Alright, when you're sticking this little extra deal in there, and how do you make your tag stand out, you can shape contrast it. Stand up, switch seats. Yeah, no worries.
I can't breathe. Closest seat to me.
So, the last one we talk about, and it's relatively short, is repetition. And repetition comes in really two ways. We're wanting to repeat the feeling of our design, and then we're wanting to repeat actual pieces, including actual pieces like the actual font. So repetition is all about doing something over and over again so it's consistent. We use the example like going into McDonald's. You don't go into McDonald's and it's like kind of curvy on the front, and it's red and yellow, and it's kind of a carnival looking colors, and everything's all chill, and you don't walk in there and all of a sudden it's like dark maroons, right? And it's like formal place wear. Everything in McDonald's design is relatively repeated. So the whole thing has this feeling. You don't want to choose a background for your business card or your flyer that's all like bubbly and curvy and cool, and then you choose a font that's all like hardcore and blah blah blah. Okay? So again, if I've made the decision, this is the font I want, I love this font, it really speaks to my business's identity, then I choose a background that goes with it as part of its overall feeling. Okay, that should have been long enough for some of you to realize that if you just wrote down both bullets the same, you wrote down the exact same words twice in a row. Okay.
Are you so not serious?
You're,
Why do you read before you write it down? Yeah.
I never do that.
Because I love like when you say it long writing it down.
here's why we sometimes do this. I do this a lot as a teacher because I like to just screw with you guys. Make sure you're listening more than you're writing. Okay? This is all online. Writing it down on your piece of paper there, like, it is good practice. I'm not telling you not to do it, but like I'm dropping little pearls to help you understand it while you're also feverishly writing that you're definitely not listening, well, you're barely listening to me, and you're maybe not, tuned in because you're just like, I'm a monkey, I'm going to write down. Okay? So, remember, it's all there. It's all there. You have it at home. It's online. I'll freely give it to you if you ever lose it. So, how many of you did it this summer? Yeah. All right. Take a second. You can write that down while I find this charger. Maybe. Turn those lights on.
No.
Just for a sec while I
Oh
find
my
this.
gosh.
I hope this is the right one. I don't know. She left it and I thought it was ours. She left it at our house. I brought it here. So I thought it was from the school with me. So. Okay. So this should look relatively familiar. This is a shot of the syllabus from this year. Kind of a boring example, but an example nonetheless. Repeating the formatting in color lets you know you're getting into a new section. Okay? Easy peasy, not too hard. Okay? Repetition will also help your eyes, not yours as much as your viewer's eyes, stay on your design. We're sort of trained to go back and forth between objects. If I took two identical twins, stuck one over here and one over here, and then put two, people between them, you would look at twin one, these two people, twin two, and then you go, oh, twins. Okay? You'd stay there, which is what we want. We spent all this time designing it. Whoever we're designing it for hired us to build them something that people would look at for a while. So I need to repeat something. No repetition, I'm out. Done. There's all the people on the team. See you later, next team. Okay, but when it's twins, I stay there. Okay, so like this. Simple repetition of just bolding the bottom and the top makes me, that was also bolded. A half second maybe, a third of a second. Some are more, this is obviously a relatively simple example of that, so I'm not saying like, oh, now I'm going to look at this card forever. Okay, it's not as loud as the twins, but you get the idea. If I can repeat something in my design that holds my viewer that second longer, then my client has a second better advantage than the next person. If Mr. Merritt and I from West Valley go to this big Photoshop conference together and my card has something that holds the person a little bit longer than Mr. Merritt's card, who is the photography teacher from Fairbanks? I am. Okay. So, you only need a split second to be that one little bit better. So that's one part of repetition. Second part being identity. Okay? This is what I was talking about sort of with McDonald's. You're not going to see a McDonald's business card that has this different logo than the actual McDonald's logo, right? Because it wouldn't make sense to you. So this is, and these aren't necessarily great designs, but these are some designs I did way back when. They're not bad, they're not great. But when I was like 20, I rebranded a little bit to try to get more wings. And so I changed my fonts, and I went through and I changed them on everything. Okay? So we see repetition of the typeface. Even though this is not the exact same typeface, you say it lives in the same family. I don't all of a sudden have a logo that's got this like jagged edge, right? It's all that kind of repetition of typeface. Same thing, repetition of a graphic. We see the film reel. Okay? Here's the film reel, there's the film reel. So this repetitive pattern, so that when these brides left these trade shows and they had flyers and brochures and all that stuff, whichever one they kept would lead them back to my other pieces. Versus if they kept my business card and they're like, oh yeah, here's his business card. What services did he offer? They didn't have to go searching through all their flyers to try to find mine. They just had to go searching for that letter M, or the one that had the little film strip and they could find it. And like, okay, yeah, this is the service we offer. And they go to my website, and my website would look the same. And so they knew they were in the right spot. Okay? So that they just knew there was a comfort to this identity. Repetition. Elena. Yeah, but I don't know what you were typing there, so I was going to see if you... Oh, you're looking at the slide. Alright, fire away anyways. Get it? Repetition? I called on her once.
Oh, yeah,
Ha
that's great.
funny. Ha 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 ha.
Not funny.
I like it better when Alexandria's sitting farther back.
Then I'm gonna sit here on purpose.
No, that's nice.
Did-
Do that.
Okay? Black, red, black. This target is also black and red. That makes sense. Okay? The repetition, that whole thing becomes kind of one piece there. Jade, another.
You can do repetition and type and like little headers, so it's like tickets that you kind of wear.
Good. Kind of color repetition there. And size repetition.
There's like even circles everywhere.
Okay. Okay. And there's even some of those circles kind of hiding on these little graphics on the side. Okay. We kind of get, and this would be your advanced kind of breakdown of it. But we have circles up here because this is all one set of information. Okay, and then we get into more of a rectangular type design down here because this is a second set of information. But in order to cause kind of a tie-in between them, I take and I do kind of dissected circles kind of hidden in the side that kind of lead us in. If you were to write that on your review, I'd be really impressed, and I'd just give you an A. You could not come across it.
Okay. Alright then, I'll do that.
I can use this as reference.
So, any questions before I kind of highlight the final stage of this? Any questions about any of these?
Yeah. Why?
So, when we say check your CARP, and I'm definitely want to make sure you know, this is exactly what I do. When I design Aisling's movie poster, I should print her a new one for this year. When I'm working on, our Christmas card at home, when I'm putting a PowerPoint together to show you guys, this is a true to life. I do this all the time. Okay? So it's not just a school thing, this is the life thing. Here's what you check. I'm going to check my CARP. Okay? About 20% of the way through my design. Once my idea starts rolling, I'm like, okay, the first 20%, I'm maybe still like, I don't really know where I'm going. But at that 20% mark, I'm like, I think I know where I'm going. Then I say, check my CARP. Okay? Here's what I check. And this is exactly what you will see on your grade. So this is kind of notes that you might see. P.S. Proximity of space. I look and I see, are my things too close together? The different little groups that I've created, are they too close together? They need to be farther apart. I check all the spacing on my little infant idea. I then take proximity of objects. I say, do I have things grouped in a logical sense? Does all this stuff really need to be grouped together? Or does some of it need to be split out? And almost, maybe half the time, I find out by really analyzing that I've got my groupings wrong. I pointed that out in the yearbook, even today. Okay? Girl came over, she said, here's my design. And it was pretty loose, it was pretty, just frames and stuff. And she said, this is going to be here and here and there. And she had this one picture drifted way off in the top, and it kind of looked good with nothing there. But it was a picture of, it was the Boys vs. Girls assembly, and it was a picture of a game, but the picture of the game was up with the pictures of the crowd. There were like 3 pictures of crowd, one picture of game, and there was all the pictures of the game over here. And I said, proximity of objects is wrong. So things should be grouped up. Here's running. Okay? Team, running. But, okay? I should have my, the more I break that page down, the worse it gets. And it's not a bad page, but it doesn't necessarily follow these rules as good as it could. Then I check contrast. Are my shapes doing what I want them to do? Are things colored appropriately? Without having to try, can I see this stuff because the colors are good? Size. Are the big things that I want to popping off? So on and so forth. Check your repetition. These two, make sure that you kind of know what these are. Repetition of design is that whole, does it have the same identity that I want it to? Do I have conflicting feelings in my design? Repetition of design. The other one is repetition of formatting and font. And there's actually a third one. Write this down if you're a note taker. There's RG, is repetition of graphics, which would be like the bullseye that I think Jay pointed out. Okay? 2 bullseyes on a page. RG. And the last thing I check is the alignment of my objects. So I've already checked to see that my objects are grouped smartly. Now I start saying, okay, what group do I need to line up with the other group? What group do I need to make sure is not in line with the other group because it's a totally separate thing? And lastly, not necessarily, and we don't necessarily always do them in that order, but I also check and see, are there any really strong lines in my design? Do I have a really strong line, and do I need to put something on that line? Whether it be more graphics that kind of follow that, or font that goes along that path or what have you. This is a fast process. This is a the more you do it, 2-minute process. Just, okay, I'm 20% through before I commit and start getting into this kind of area of being able to unchange it. I'm going to go through these 7, 8 things, 9 things. Okay, check. And then now I know, okay, now I can go on. Then again, at about 75% done, I check them again. But if you don't check these at 20%, then you're going to start making design that's going to be hard to get right without totally rewiping some of it. And my yearbook girls can attest to that. Okay? You say, here's my design, isn't it good? And then we kind of start going, well, that's not really going to work there. And you just are like, okay, I'll take that out. And all of a sudden you go, uh-oh. Okay? And you start rearranging, reworking, and adjusting. So, early on, you want to check. Okay. If you do not have internet at home and will not have the ability to do the 2 assignments, actually it's 3 because your letter is your 3rd, you need to come see me right now. Everyone else, you got about 30 seconds to the bell.
I don't care. I'm resisting the urge to smack you right now.
There's that.
I'll pay you.
I was talking to Charlie because he's being really mean to me.
Just slap. Yeah. Do it. Exactly. Oh. Oh my god.
I regret it.
Did Brian talk to you? Yeah. Okay, I just got his email. Of course he does. I asked him the questions and he sent me like full paragraph answers back.
Yes.
I was like, Brian's amazing. I love
So I see you.
I haven't read him yet. He's
Clap.
like my brother.
Okay.
I just didn't turn in my
I'm
extra
gonna
interview.
call
I just